Most people assume that losing their vision after 50 is just part of getting older, like gray hair or slower knees, inevitable, irreversible, and something you simply learn to live with. But what if I told you that some of the most compelling research in ophthalmology right now is pointing in a completely different direction? What if the slow blurring, the fading sharpness, the difficulty reading in dim light, what if none of that had to be your permanent reality? There is a specific type of food, something most of us have easy access to, something that has been sitting quietly at grocery stores and farmers markets for decades. And what researchers have discovered is that the compounds inside this food have a direct, measurable, and genuinely remarkable effect on the biology of the human eye, even in people over 50, 60, and beyond. Stay with me through this because what I am going to share with you today is going to change the way you think about your vision, your eyes, and what your body is still capable of doing when you give it the right information. My name is Dr. William Lee. I am a physician, a scientist, and the author of Eat to Beat Disease. My research has focused for many years on understanding how the human body defends itself, how our organs fight back against damage, against aging, against disease using tools built right into our own biology. The eye is one of the most extraordinary organs in the human body, and the science of what can protect it, restore it, and keep it sharp well into your later decades is something I am deeply passionate about sharing. If this is your first time here on the BioSecrets channel, I want to welcome you. And if the idea of protecting your eyes through something as simple and accessible as the right daily food resonates with you, hit that subscribe button right now, because we share this kind of evidence-based, deeply researched health information regularly, and you do not want to miss what we have coming. Now, let me start by telling you something that most people, even many general practitioners, do not fully appreciate about the eye. Your eye is not just a passive window to the world. It is one of the most metabolically active tissues in your entire body. That means it burns energy, it produces waste, it relies on a constant supply of blood, oxygen, and nutrients, and when that supply gets disrupted, even slightly, the effects show up quickly. Vision changes. Clarity fades. Colors seem a little duller. You start needing more light to read. These are not random events. These are signals from a tissue that is under nutritional and biological stress. And here is where most people have been misled by well-meaning advice, by popular health culture, and sometimes even by the medical system itself. The common belief is that vision loss after 50 is primarily a structural problem, that the lens gets stiff, the retina wears down, and the only solutions are glasses, surgery, or medication. That what you eat has very little to do with what your eyes can do. That belief is outdated, and the science now tells a very different story. Researchers studying the relationship between nutrition and ocular health, the health of the eye, have made discoveries over the past 2 decades that should be front-page news. They have found that specific dietary compounds can cross into the tissues of the eye, accumulate there, protect the delicate photoreceptor cells from damage, reduce inflammation in the blood vessels feeding the retina, and in some cases actually slow or reverse changes that were once considered permanent. This is not theoretical, this is observable biology, and it begins with understanding what is actually happening inside your eye as you age. Let me take you inside because this is where it gets genuinely fascinating. At the back of your eye sits the retina, a thin, curved layer of tissue that functions like the film inside a camera. It captures light, converts it into electrical signals, and sends those signals to your brain through the optic nerve. Within the retina, there is a tiny but critically important region called the macula. The macula is responsible for your central vision, your sharpest, most detailed sight. It is what allows you to read, to recognize faces, to see the world in high definition. Now, inside the macula, there is something called the macular pigment. Think of this pigment as a built-in pair of sunglasses. It filters out harmful blue light, the kind that comes from screens, from sunlight, from fluorescent lighting, and it also acts as a powerful antioxidant shield, protecting the photoreceptor cells from oxidative stress. The denser and richer this pigment is, the better your visual acuity, the better your contrast sensitivity, and the lower your risk of developing serious conditions like age-related macular degeneration, one of the leading causes of vision loss in adults over 50. Here is the critical point. This macular pigment is not something your body manufactures on its own in large quantities. It is built almost entirely from 2 specific compounds that you must get from your food. Their names are lutein and zeaxanthin, and this is where everything changes. Lutein and zeaxanthin are carotenoids, a family of pigments found in certain plants, and the food that contains both of these in the highest concentrations, in the most bioavailable form, in quantities that research shows can literally rebuild and restore macular pigment density in adults at any age, including people in their 60s. 70s and even 80s is a food so simple, so accessible, and so underestimated that most people walk right past it. Leafy greens, and at the very top of that list, kale. But wait, before your mind goes to salads and green smoothies and everything you think you already know about kale, stay with me, because the mechanism here is not what most people expect. This goes far deeper than general antioxidants and superfood marketing. What is happening in the biology of your eye when these compounds arrive is genuinely extraordinary. When you consume lutein and zeaxanthin from kale, from spinach, from other dark leafy greens, these compounds are absorbed in your small intestine. They travel through your bloodstream and they do something remarkable. They selectively accumulate in one place more than anywhere else in the body, the macula of the eye, your eye. Preferentially pulls these specific compounds out of circulation and deposits them directly into the tissue that needs them most. This is targeted nutrition in its most elegant form. Once there, they do three things that directly affect your vision. First, they act as optical filters. They absorb high-energy blue and ultraviolet light before it can damage the photoreceptors underneath. Photoreceptors are the rods and cones that actually detect light. When they get repeatedly bombarded with unfiltered radiation, they degrade over time. The macular pigment is the protective barrier that stands between that damage and your visual cells. When it is thick and dense, your eye is protected. When it is thin, which is exactly what happens when your diet lacks lutein and zeaxanthin, those cells are exposed and vulnerable. Second, lutein and zeaxanthin are antioxidants of the highest order. The retina is one of the most oxygen-rich environments in the body, which means it produces a tremendous amount of oxidative byproduct, the biological equivalent of exhaust from a busy engine. Without adequate antioxidant protection, this oxidative stress accumulates and damages the retinal cells from within. Lutein and zeaxanthin neutralize these free radicals directly inside the eye tissue. They extinguish the cellular fire before it can cause lasting harm. Third, and this is the part that most people never hear, these compounds appear to support the health of the tiny blood vessels feeding the retina. The retina has one of the most elaborate and sensitive microvascular systems in the body. These tiny vessels deliver oxygen and nutrients to every photoreceptor cell. When inflammation damages them, when they become leaky or irregular, the retina suffers. Research suggests that lutein and zeaxanthin help maintain the integrity of these vessels, reducing inflammatory signals, supporting the endothelial cells that line the walls of these capillaries, and preserving blood flow to the tissue that depends on it. Now, there is clinical evidence behind all of this, and I want you to understand how compelling it is. The most significant body of research comes from a landmark series of studies known as the ARDS trials, the age-related eye disease studies conducted by the National Eye Institute in the United States. These studies involved thousands of participants over multiple years and examined the effect of specific nutritional compounds on the progression of age-related macular degeneration and cataracts. What the researchers found validated what nutritional science had been suggesting for years, that the right compounds in the right amounts delivered consistently could meaningfully reduce the risk of vision loss and in early to moderate disease, slow the progression significantly. Subsequent research built on this foundation. Studies examining macular pigment optical density, a measurable value that tells researchers exactly how much protective pigment exists in the macula, consistently found that people who consumed higher amounts of lutein and zeaxanthin from their diet had significantly denser macular pigment. And denser macular pigment was directly associated with better visual contrast sensitivity, reduced glare, and lower risk of serious retinal disease. One important study published in the journal Investigative Ophthalmology and Visual Science showed that supplementing with lutein over a period of several months actually increased macular pigment optical density in participants who had previously low levels, meaning the pigment can be rebuilt. It is not a one-time gift you either have or do not have. It is a living, replenishable resource that responds directly to what you eat. That is a remarkable and hopeful fact. And now I want to come back to kale, because the reason I keep returning to it is not arbitrary. 1 cup of cooked kale contains approximately 23 milligrams of lutein and zeaxanthin. That is an extraordinary amount by comparison. A large egg, which is also a meaningful source, contains about 0.2 milligrams per egg. Spinach, another excellent source, contains roughly 12 milligrams per cooked cup. Kale sits at the top of the plant kingdom for this particular nutritional purpose, and there is an important detail about how to eat it that most people miss. Lutein and zeaxanthin are fat-soluble. That means your body absorbs them dramatically better when they are consumed with a source of healthy fat. When you eat kale or spinach in a completely fat-free form, plain steamed with no oil, no dressing, no added fat, you absorb only a fraction of the lutein and zeaxanthin present. But when you add olive oil, avocado, a handful of nuts, or even a soft cooked egg to your greens, absorption increases significantly. Research has shown that the addition of dietary fat can increase carotenoid absorption from leafy greens by as much as 3 to 5 times compared to fat-free consumption. This is one of those small practical details that makes a massive biological difference, and it is the kind of thing I want you to leave this video knowing because it transforms a good habit into a genuinely powerful one. Let me also address something I hear frequently, especially from people over 50 who have already noticed changes in their vision. They ask, is it too late? Have the cells already been damaged beyond repair? And here is what the science genuinely supports as an honest and hopeful answer. For the most severe forms of advanced retinal degeneration, the picture is more complicated. But for the vast majority of people experiencing age-related visual decline, reduced sharpness, increased sensitivity to glare, difficulty with contrast, slower adaptation from light to dark, these changes are strongly influenced by the state of the macular pigment and the overall nutritional environment of the retina. And that environment can be changed. Macular pigment can be rebuilt. Oxidative stress can be reduced. Inflammation in the microcirculation can be brought down. The body does not simply give up on the eye because you turned 50. The biology of repair and protection is still active. It just needs the right fuel to do its job. Now I want to go beyond kale for a moment because while dark leafy greens are the foundation, the cornerstone of eye nutrition, there are other foods that work synergistically to support visual health in ways that science has now clearly documented. Eggs deserve a dedicated mention, specifically the egg yolk. This is one of the most bioavailable sources of lutein and zeaxanthin that exists. The reason is that the carotenoids in an egg yolk are already embedded in a lipid-rich matrix, meaning the fat is right there, naturally ensuring absorption is optimized from the moment you eat it. Research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition showed that consuming egg yolks alongside vegetables significantly enhanced carotenoid absorption compared to consuming vegetables alone. So if you eat eggs with a side of greens, you are not just getting two sources of lutein and zeaxanthin, you are boosting the absorption of both. Wild salmon and other fatty fish introduce another layer of protection. Omega-3 fatty acids, specifically DHA, which stands for docosahexaenoic acid, are a structural component of the photoreceptor cell membranes in the retina. Your eye is not just made of water and protein, its most critical cells are built with fat and DHA. Is the specific omega-3 that the retina preferentially uses to maintain the fluidity and function of photoreceptor membranes. Without adequate DHA, those membranes become stiffer and less efficient at translating light into signal. Research has linked low omega-3 status with higher rates of dry eye syndrome, with reduced retinal function, and with increased risk of macular degeneration. Eating fatty fish 2 to 3 times per week is one of the most evidence-based dietary habits for long-term eye health. Blueberries carry a different but complementary mechanism. Their deep blue-purple color comes from a class of compounds called anthocyanins polyphenols with exceptional antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. What is particularly relevant for the eye is that anthocyanins have been studied for their ability to support rhodopsin regeneration. Rhodopsin is the light-sensitive pigment in the rod cells of your retina, the cells responsible for low light and peripheral vision. Some research suggests that anthocyanins may help regenerate rhodopsin after light exposure more efficiently, which could contribute to better night vision and faster dark adaptation. The evidence here is still evolving, but the anti-inflammatory and vascular protective effects of blueberries on ocular circulation are well supported. There is also a role for vitamin C, not from a pill, but from whole food sources. The aqueous humor, the fluid inside your eye, contains some of the highest concentrations of vitamin C found anywhere in the human body. This is not an accident. Vitamin C serves as a primary antioxidant defense within the eye's internal fluid environment, protecting the lens from oxidative damage, which is one of the key drivers of cataract formation. Bell peppers, citrus fruits, strawberries, and kiwi are all excellent food sources of vitamin C. Consistently keeping your vitamin C status high through food is a quiet but meaningful contribution to lens health over time. And then there is zinc, a mineral that often gets overlooked in conversations about vision, but one that the ARDS research specifically highlighted. Zinc is essential for the function of enzymes in the retina that protect against oxidative damage. It also plays a role in transporting vitamin A from the liver to the retina, and vitamin A is the precursor to rhodopsin, the light-sensitive molecule we just discussed. Without adequate zinc, vitamin A cannot do its job in the eye effectively. Foods like pumpkin seeds, legumes, oysters, and lean beef are reliable dietary sources of zinc. What I want you to see, and I use that word deliberately, is that visual health is not a single nutrient conversation. It is an ecosystem. The eye thrives when multiple protective compounds arrive together consistently from real food. No single supplement, no single pill can fully replicate the complexity of what whole foods deliver when consumed regularly and thoughtfully, which brings me to something practical that I want to offer you, because all of this science means very little unless it translates into something you can actually do starting today. The most powerful shift you can make for your eyes right now is to commit to what I call your daily green dose. 1 cup of cooked leafy greens, kale, spinach, or Swiss chard prepared with a tablespoon of olive oil or paired with half an avocado. That one daily habit delivers a concentrated dose of lutein and zeaxanthin in a form your body can actually absorb and use. It is not complicated. It does not require a special diet or a complete lifestyle overhaul. 1 cup, 1 tablespoon of healthy fat every day. The consistency is what creates the biological change over time. Add to that 2 to 3 servings of fatty fish per week. Add a handful of blueberries most mornings. Include eggs several times a week. Eat colorful vegetables, broadly orange and yellow peppers, corn, squash, which also contain meaningful amounts of zeaxanthin, and prioritize whole food sources of vitamin C and zinc across your meals. These are not radical interventions. These are calibrated, evidence-based dietary choices that collectively create an internal environment in which your eyes can maintain themselves, repair themselves, and function at their best regardless of your age. I also want to mention one lifestyle factor that compounds everything we have discussed: blood sugar management. Research consistently shows that chronically elevated blood sugar, even below the diabetic threshold, in the range called prediabetes, causes measurable damage to the small blood vessels of the retina. This is why diabetic retinopathy is such a devastating and common condition. But the broader truth is that any degree of vascular inflammation, driven by poor blood sugar control, impairs the microcirculation that your retina depends on. Minimizing refined carbohydrates, avoiding sugary beverages, and eating fiber-rich whole foods to blunt blood sugar spikes is not just a general health recommendation. For your eyes specifically, it is protective in a direct and documented way. And sleep, because without adequate sleep, your eyes do not fully recover from the oxidative stress of daily light exposure. The eye clears metabolic waste and undergoes repair during the dark hours. People who consistently undersleep show markers of increased retinal stress. This is one more reason why 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep is not optional for anyone who cares about their long-term visual health. Here is what I want you to take away from everything we have covered today. Your eyes are not simply deteriorating because time is passing. They are responding to an environment, the biological environment created by what you eat, how you sleep, how you manage inflammation, and what nutrients you consistently provide to a tissue that is working hard every single moment of every waking day. Change that environment and you change what is possible. The macular pigment that filters and protects your central vision can be rebuilt. The oxidative stress battering your photoreceptors can be reduced. The microvascular inflammation compromising blood flow to your retina can be brought down. These are not speculative possibilities. They are measurable, documented, reproducible biological realities. The body has built-in systems of protection and repair, and food is the language those systems understand best. I have spent years studying how nutrition activates the body's own healing capacity, not as a replacement for medicine, but as a foundation beneath it. And what I have seen in the science of vision health is one of the most compelling examples of that principle in action. The eye responds, it adapts, it can be nourished back toward health in ways that most people are never told are possible. So I want to ask you something, and I want you to answer in the comments below, because I genuinely read them and this matters to me. Have you noticed changes in your vision since turning 50? Do you experience more difficulty in low light, more sensitivity to glare, more trouble reading small text? Tell me what you are experiencing, and then tell me which of these foods are you already eating regularly, and which ones have you been neglecting? Your answer might reveal exactly where the gap is, and sometimes closing one nutritional gap, adding that daily cup of cooked greens with olive oil, or those 2 weekly servings of salmon, creates a shift that surprises you within weeks. Not because it is magic, but because you are finally giving a nutrient-starved tissue what it has been waiting for. If someone in your life is over 50 and struggling with their vision, a parent, a spouse, a close friend, please share this video with them. Not because they need to be alarmed, but because they deserve to know that the biology of their eye is still working in their favor, and that the choice they make at dinner tonight can matter more than they ever realized. And if you have not yet subscribed to BioSecrets, this is the moment to do it. We bring you this quality of science-backed, deeply researched health content consistently, and the next video we are releasing goes even deeper into a topic that connects directly to what we discussed today. You will not want to miss it. Your vision is not simply a casualty of aging. It is a reflection of how you have nourished one of the most remarkable and demanding tissues in the human body. Start nourishing it differently today and see what becomes possible. I am Dr. William Lee, and I will see you in the next one.